So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our monthly mindfulness program. And again, today we have Sunandan and Sunanse kindly joining us, as always, and also Susmahita Swaminahanse also joining us. So if you remember, in India back when Buddha was alive, they used a calendar system that was based on the moon, right? The lunar calendars. And in Sri Lanka also they used that until recently, before they swapped it to the solar calendar or the Gregorian calendar that we use now. So each month or each full moon had a name. And so if you remember 2 months ago it was Vesak, the month of May, or the full moon day in Vesak is known as Vesak. And then last month it was Poson, and this month it's called Asala. So during each of these months or full moon days, something special happens, and we consider these full moon days in Buddhism to be an auspicious day. So if you go to Sri Lanka, every full moon day is a public holiday. And so if you remember in the month of Vesak, we spoke about how Buddha's birth, the enlightenment, and the passing happened. Right, and then last month it was when Mahinda Thero came to Sri Lanka or brought Buddhism to Sri Lanka. And then this month, like that, similarly, there happened special events. So in this month, the first dhamma talk or the teaching was given by the Buddha. So 2 full moons ago was when he was enlightened, and it was in this full moon day that he gave his first teaching. So the first words that Buddha gave when he was enlightened, first words that he taught is Dveme bhikkhave anta pabbajitena nasevitabba. And we did discuss this a couple of months ago. It's talking about the 2 extremes, right? How there's 2 extremes that someone who is seeking enlightenment should not associate in, and we did discuss this very thoroughly. And so that teaching was given in this month. And then another event that happened in this month was that the first council was held. So if you remember in the sutta discussions, if you joined it, you would remember how I spoke after the Buddha's passing. So again, Buddha passed 2 full moons ago. After that, in this full moon day, these monks or the arahants got together, and then they categorized the Buddha's teachings, so Vinaya and Dhamma. And then they constructed the Tipitaka as we have it today. So we have the Vinaya Sutta Pitaka and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. And so that's another thing that happened on this full moon day. And another special thing that happens each year still to this day is the start of the rains season is also on this full moon day. So what the rains season is in the subcontinent, you don't have the 4 seasons that we have here, right? You have, in India, you have a rainy season, we call Vasana, and then a summer, Gimhana, and a very cold season, we call Hemanta. So we have Vasana, Hemanta, and Gimhana and Hemanta. So the rainy season, back then, obviously they don't have roads like we have now, and they don't have cars. So it gets muddy and very yucky, right? So people tend to stay indoors during this season. However, the Buddhist monks, they have to walk around. They have to go Pindapata, they have to spread the Dhamma, and so they continue to walk during this season. And in India, if you go, like even today, there's people with many, many beliefs, right? There's many beliefs in that country. Back in Buddha's time, it was very similar. People had different beliefs. And one of these beliefs was that the plants and trees had consciousness, or in other words, they're alive. So when the monks are walking during the rainy season, they were stepping on the grass, the new grass. And then people started complaining to the Buddha, saying that these monks are killing the plants and by walking around when everyone else is staying indoors. So Buddha used this as an opportunity to create a rule saying that the monks during this season have to stay in the same place or same monastery for the Vassana season or the rainy season. And what that does is it allows the monks to stay away from the social work that they do and spreading the dhamma, but instead concentrate on their practice. So during the 3 months, they would stay in the same place and concentrate on their practice more. And on the other hand, for the lay people, they saw this as an opportunity for them to accumulate merits. So when they know that the rain season is coming, they knew the monks are going to be staying in the same place. So they would build a temporary place near their house, and they would invite the monks to stay in that place. And that way, not only can they accumulate merits by giving dana, the robes, a place to stay, and medication for the monks, but also it allows them to associate with the monks more closely, right? So what that does is it allows them to hear the dhamma, to discuss the dhamma, and also, more importantly, to practice the dhamma. And a modern day example of this is, if you remember, I told you guys how we went to Darwin in April, right? And along the way, we met a lot of Sri Lankan community in Kupapidi, Alice Springs, in Darwin, etc. And this group in Alice Springs, they wanted to start a place in Alice Springs, a temple, for them to go and talk with the monks. So this Vasana, this rains retreat, they actually talked to our local Swaminanse, our big Swaminanse here, Chief Swaminanse, and they actually asked for one of the monks if they could spend the Vas season in Alice Springs. So one of the monks actually did go, and he's actually spending this rain season in Alice Springs. So probably for the first time in the history of Alice Springs, there's a Buddhist monk there, right? And as you probably know, it's a city that has a very high crime rate in the world. So it is those places like that really needs Buddhism, right? Because people sometimes misunderstand, thinking Buddhism is for good people and good people only. But it's actually for everyone, right? And my argument is, if we can't make a bad person a good person, or if we can't make a thief into a good person in society, then what use does that philosophy have in this world? Right? We need to be able to transform a person. That's when that philosophy comes alive, becomes useful. So when this monk goes to Alice Springs, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, obviously, but over time, just by seeing a monk, the sight of a monk, it doesn't make that person more angry. It calms that person down. And if he has bad intentions or something, or he has plans to do something bad, he has a chance to now transform. Or let's say a person has done something bad and he has regret in his mind. He now has someone to talk to, right? So that's the importance of having a monk in a place like that. And so coming back to the topic, having this rain season, this introduction of a rain season, it has great uses even today, right? And it's not just that, right? So for example, a lay person, they can, like I said, accumulate merits, but also let's say there's someone who's alcoholic, for example, and they want to get rid of that habit. They can use these 3 months as a time to reset or restart their life, right? So they can think, the monks don't drink for their whole life, so why can't I do this for 3 months, right? So, or maybe someone wants to get healthy or lose some weight. The monks don't eat dinner, so we have this fasting that goes on from lunchtime to following morning. So that's a 18-hour fast. It's called intermittent fasting, and it's actually scientifically speaking, it's actually one of the most healthiest diets out there. And so this person, if he wants to lose weight, they can apply this to their life, right? And it doesn't have to be 18 hours, right? It can be 14 or 16 or 12, not your regular 8-hour fast. So having that goal or practicality or having someone who does it with you, it makes it more achievable. And even more or even better, a person can add a quality to their life. For example, let's say if someone wants to practice compassion more in their life. So let's say they can, for 15 minutes in the morning, they practice metta, for example, right? So he wishes, or they close their eyes and wishes everyone becomes free from suffering, right? Free from many troubles that they're going through. And they spread it everywhere, all directions. And they can practice this every day for these 3 months. Or even, let's say, someone's so busy that he doesn't have 15 minutes in their life to practice that. They can make a goal, okay, I'm not going to be angry with my siblings in these 3 months. Right? So they can try or add something like this into their life in these 3 months. And that's the best part about this practice, these retreats, right? This Vassana retreat. It's not just people inviting us, having this massive event at the end of it called Katina Pinkama. It's not those. It's these qualities that we develop during this season that's more important. And that is what the Buddha encouraged us to do as monks, to meditate and practice our spiritual practice, and as lay people to accumulate merits as well as develop these qualities and also to practice mindfulness. Right? Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, it's not the wealth that's going to be useful to you, right? It's how much you spiritually progress that's going to be important. And there's this story of King Alexander, when he was about to die and he had his death wish. And he had 3 wishes. The first one was that when he dies, his body must be carried by his doctors to the cemetery. And then the second is, along that path, his wealth must be spread out. The doctors must walk on his wealth. And then the third one is, the people on the side of the road must see his hands. Right? So the first one was the doctors must carry his body. Second is the wealth must be on that road. And the third one is his hands must be seen by the people. And this has a deep meaning, and he's trying to tell everyone this. That is that, you can have the best doctors in the world. You can have all the doctors in the world, but when it's time to die, you have to die. Right? There's no escape. You can't escape that. No one can save you. And then the second is, you can have all the wealth in the world, all the power in the world, but when it's time to die, you have to die. Right? Those things, they're useful in this life, but when it's time to die, you have to go. They're not going to be able to save you. And then the third one is, you go empty-handed. You come into this world empty-handed, and you leave empty-handed. So this is what he was trying to tell us in his last wish. And in the sutta that we're going to discuss today, Buddha also explains and emphasizes the importance of practice in the spiritual life. So the sutta that I chose today, it's called Chappanaka Sutta, and it's in the Samyutta Nikaya. So if you remember how the Sutta Pitaka is constructed, there's the long discourses, the middle discourses, and then the shorter, compact suttas. So this one is in the shorter section, and in the subsection called Salayatana Vagga. And like I said, the sutta's name is Chappanaka. So it's actually 2 words combined into one. Cha Panaka, combined into one, becomes Chappanaka. So Cha means 6. And Panaka or Prana means life. Right? So in this case, it actually means animals. So the sutta's name means, the translation of that word name means 6 animals. And sutta goes like this. So Buddha starts off with a simile, right? So like we've discussed, simile is one of the main ways that Buddha taught his philosophy. And Buddha says, imagine there's a person who is injured or had an accident. So let's say maybe he fell down a mountain or something and he has a lot of wounds, a lot of scratches in his body. And they're not treated, there's no medication for him. So this person's very injured and he's not going through a good time. So now Buddha says this person now has to cross a forest. right? So this guy's already having a bad day. Now he has to cross a forest. And it's not an ordinary forest. It's a one with, those plants with thorns and spikes and stuff, right? So this forest is full of that. So this person who is wounded now has to cross the forest full of these thorns and spikes and stuff. So you can imagine, right? Even if this wounded person, even if there's no spikes and thorns, having to cross a forest is hard enough, right? But now, and for a person who doesn't have any wounds, to cross a forest full of spikes and thorns is also hard. So this person now is faced with both of them, is faced with both of these, and now has to cross the forest. So we have a saying in Sinhalese, we say, someone who has fallen off a tree, a bull comes and hits him. So this is what's happening to this guy as well. But it says he's wounded, he now has to cross a forest full of spikes and thorns. And let's try to understand what this simile means, right, before you go to the next part of the sutta. So this person who is wounded symbolizes someone who is starting their practice of mindfulness, right? Someone who is just starting off. And so the Buddha says this person goes to a village, right, to practice mindfulness. And this village is the forest, right? And Buddha says when he goes to the village, he needs to understand one thing. It is that there's going to be spikes and thorns in this village, right? And I want you to keep this in mind throughout this sutta. That is that, let's say this person who is wounded, if he goes into the forest without knowing that there's going to be spikes and thorns, is he going to be more hurtful or more damaged? Or is he going to be less damaged? Having that understanding that there's going to be more thorns. Okay? So Buddha says, when he goes to the village, this person needs to know that there's going to be spikes and thorns. Right? And the word that Buddha uses in this sutta is asangvara. So if someone goes into the village without knowing that there's going to be thorns and spikes, he becomes asangvara. What asangvara means is, asangvara is the opposite of sangvara. Sangvara means obedient or disciplined, or is under control. So asangvara is the opposite of obedient, opposite of disciplined. Okay? Or in other words, out of control. So imagine a dog that doesn't have a leash. It's in the park and it's free to run around, chase the birds, or bite someone. Right? It's out of control. So like that, if a person goes to the village without knowing that there's going to be spikes and thorns, this person is going to be out of control, like the dog without a leash. Right? So going back to the simile, the person with the wounds is the practitioner who's starting their practice. And the village, it symbolizes the world that we live in. Right? So wherever you are, that your world, where you are living, is a village. And the wounds that this person has, like I said, this is someone who is starting off. The wounds that he has is the attachments that he has in his life. Right? So like the wounds cause him pain and suffering to that person, these attachments cause suffering and pain to us. And we'll discuss that in a bit. Right? So when this person goes into the village without knowing that there's going to be these spikes and thorns, he becomes asangvara. So if we discuss what is it that becomes asangvara, we have three main things in our life. We can do actions, we can talk, and we can think. Right? And as we've discussed earlier, it's our body is secondary. Right? Our mind is primary. Our mind is a control center. Our speech and our actions come after that. So it is the mind that becomes asangvara. And Buddha encourages us to make our mind sangvara, obedient. Right? So our body is just like a puppet. Our mind is the control center. And then Buddha asks, Katancha bhikkhave asangvaro hoti. What is it, or how does your mind becomes asangvara? So going to a village by itself doesn't make you asangvara. How does it actually become asangvara? And then Buddha goes into detail about how that happens. And Buddha says there's 6 different ways of us experiencing this world. And there's some new people, so I'll explain this again. There's 6 different ways for us to experience the world, and that is through our senses. We have our eyes, our nose, our tongue, ears, skin, and then the brain. And through these 6 senses, we can experience the external world, right? So when someone sees or hears something, naturally what happens is he classifies them, whether good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. So whether it's a taste or image or something that he hears, he classifies this, or they classify these things. And as soon as you classify, you are attached, right? So for example, if you classify something as good or pleasant, we want to hold on to it. You want more and more of that. If it's something bad or negative or something that is unpleasant, they tend to reject it. You don't want it, or you try to stay away from those things. Right? So as soon as we do either of these things, we are attached. And what that happens, as a consequence of that, our mind starts to generate more and more thoughts on these things. So in other words, our mind becomes asangvara. Right? And the reason that we do that is because when we see or when we notice something coming in, we don't realize that it's gone or it disappears or ceases in that very moment. We think that it exists for a long time. So there's another sutta where Buddha explains very concisely what goes on in our world. Right? So, and the background story is also very nice. So this person, he's been practicing for a very, very long time, very intensely. And it said that he went to a mountain in one of his past lives with a group of friends. And there's only one way to go to that mountain, right? And once they got there, they blocked off that road, so they can't go out and no one can come up. And they started meditating, and each person using the powers that they've developed would go up in the path and come back and bring food for everyone. So some of these friends become enlightened, some of them don't. And this person doesn't become enlightened, so he was born in this Buddha Sasana, and he was born in south of India. And he hears that, okay, there's an enlightened person, and then he walks all the way from South India to North India to meet the Buddha and listen to the Dhamma. And when he met the Buddha's going on Pindapata, alms round. And he asks, can you teach me the Dhamma? And Buddha says, when we are going alms round, we don't teach the Dhamma, we don't talk. And this person says to the Buddha, I can't wait. What if I die before you finish your alms round? And Buddha checks this person's lifespan, and in fact, he does die before he finishes the Pindapata. Buddha finishes the Pindapata. So Buddha concisely tells him what happens in our life, or how do we really experience things. And Buddha says, Ditte dittamattam bhavisati, sute sutamattam bhavisati, mute mutamattam bhavisati, viññate viññatamattam bhavisati. So ditte dittamattam bhavisati means when you see something, that is it. There's no what happens next, or there's no what happened to that thing next, or where did it go. There's no such thing. When you see something, it finishes there. There's no next. Right? So let's use an example, right? For example, let's say you're going to work in the morning, or you're going to uni in the morning, and you're waiting in the traffic light, and then from behind you, a Ferrari goes past, right? So the Ferrari comes and it goes, right? So it's gone now. But you go to uni or you go to work, and you tell your friends that, this morning I saw a sick Ferrari, right? And you tell all these things. So in other words, the Ferrari comes and it's gone. But in your world, what happens? It lives on. Right? It lives up here. Right? So ditte dittamatang hasn't happened. So in other words, when you saw the Ferrari, you took it in. Does that make sense? What I mean by when you take it? Yeah. So you took it in. And it's the same with the sound. Sute sutamattam bhavisati. When you hear something, that is it. It finishes there. It ended there. There's no next. You don't need to take it in. But what happens in our life is, let's say you're at work or uni and you hear some of your friends talking behind your back or something, or gossiping about you. It's a sound that comes in. And that sound ends there. But you keep it in. You keep it in for days and sometimes weeks or months or years. So later you see this person and automatically you remember, okay, this person said this on that day in front of these people. In so much detail as well, right? So sute sutamattang has not been applied there. Right? What really happened was sound came and sound left, but you have taken it in and you're holding it inside you. And then mute mutamattang, when you feel something, whether it's a taste, a smell, or something to your skin, it comes and goes. You don't need to take it in. Vinyate vinyatamattang, when a thought arises, that thought comes and it goes. There's nothing to think about again and again and again. Right? So if you remember that in our last sutta, Sakacha, I introduced this word to you guys, niprapancha and prapancha. So prapancha is these thoughts that we have, or the inner chat that we have in our minds. That is prapancha. So prapancha abhi rata praja. So the people in the society, or the wounded people, like that person, they like to think. They like to hold these things in. When they see a Ferrari, they don't want to forget about it. They want to keep it in. When someone says something bad about us, we want to remember that person. We want to remember this person said this for the rest of our life. We want to remember it, right? So we can pay back. That's the nature of us. But then Buddha says, Nippapancha tathagata. Nippapancha tathagata. Tathagata, the Buddha, the enlightened people, they are Nippapancha. Their minds are quiet. They don't have this chatter that we have. Because for them, ditte ditta mattang is happening. When they see something, that is it. They don't take it in. When they hear something, that is it. They don't take it in. Mute mutamattang, when they feel something, that is it. They don't take it in. And then when a thought comes, that is it. They don't go thinking about that thought more and more. So let's go back to the sutta, right? So we had this person, this wounded person. And if you think about this guy, like I said, it's someone who takes it in. And if we discuss a bit more, it's a person who doesn't know that Ferrari is only living in his head, in his mind. So like I said, the Ferrari is gone. But in our world, in our mind, Ferrari is still there. It's a perfect Ferrari. But the real Ferrari might have crashed or someone stole it, or maybe it's written off now. But in our world, it's a perfect Ferrari. Right? So this world that we have, or this interpretation of the world that we have, I want to ask you something. Is it real? It's not, right? It's not real. The real world, we don't know what's happening. Because it happens and it goes. But we take it in, and then we think that world is real. So whenever we give an interpretation of these things, it's not real. We are living with our interpretation of these things. Right? So in this sutta, Buddha gives then the main simile in this sutta, that is the 6 animals, right? Chapanaka. And Buddha says, imagine that there's 6 different animals, right? So the animals that Buddha says are a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, and a fox. A fox and a monkey. So a snake, a crocodile, bird, dog, fox, and a monkey. And each of these animals, they have their own homes, right? So a snake likes to live in the anthill. A crocodile wants to live in the water. A bird wants to live in the sky, and a dog wants to live at home. a fox in the sutta says wants to live in the cemetery. Right? So back in India, those days, they just leave the body on the ground and leave. Right? So maybe for the meat and stuff, the foxes come and live in the cemeteries. And then the monkey wants to live in the tree. And Buddha says, imagine if these 6 animals are tied with 6 ropes, and then these 6 ropes are then tied together. Okay, so the snake, the crocodile, etc., they're tied with 6 ropes, and they're tied together. So what happens is each of these animals tries to go to their respective homes, right? Because that's where they feel safe. And obviously, because they're tied together, not all of them can go at once, right? Only the most powerful one at each given time can go to the home. So if the crocodile is the most powerful one, it will go to its home. Or if it's the bird that's the most powerful, it will go to its home. Right? So these 6 animals, as you probably guessed, is these 6 senses, right? So our eyes, the nose, etc., or the faculties. And like I said, these animals have their own home. So for our eye, we can only see colors, right? Even that in that small visible range, right? We can't see X-rays or anything, right? We can see light or color in that visible range. And for the eye, it can only see that. It can't hear sounds, it can't see any other ranges. It can only see that range of color. That is its home. The ear can only hear sounds. So for the ear, the home is the sounds. Right? So like that, for each of these animals, like they have their own homes, these senses also have their own respective home. For the brain, it is the thoughts, right? And here's the thing, right? So let's talk about how it becomes asangvara, right? So these animals have their each home. These senses also have these external faculties that are the home. And so each time something comes in through the senses, a world is created within us, right? So for example, when we see a color, a world of color is created within us. So for example, in that Ferrari example, a color comes in. The Ferrari doesn't know that it's a Ferrari. Our eye doesn't know that it's a Ferrari. Our eye can only see a color, right? That's scientifically proven, and Buddha has said that as well. So when our eye sees a color, in our world, within us, when we take it in, we create a world of Ferraris. Right? We have thought Ferraris are fast, Ferraris are rare, they're expensive. All these thoughts have been created within us. Or in other words, a whole world is created within us. So here's the important part, right? This world, it's not, I was here and the person who was here saw a Ferrari. Or it's not, I was here and a world of Ferrari was created within me. It's not like that. When that color comes in, when you take it in, a person who is seeing that, a person who is experiencing that is also created. So along with the world, along with that world of images, you are also created. And when that world is seized or destroyed, when that Ferrari goes, you are also destroyed. Or in other words, you also die. And then let's say next, a Bugatti comes in. Now that Ferrari world is destroyed, now a new world is created. The world where you experience the Ferrari, you also die. And a new version of you is created with the world of Bugattis now. And when that world is gone or destroyed, you also die. Right? So each moment we are born, and each moment you also die. Each moment a world is created, and each moment the world is destroyed. So there's a saying by the Buddha, imasmincha bhyame matte kalebare, lokancha panyapemi, loka samudayancha, loka nirodhagamini patipadantiti. The world, the origination of the world, the cessation of the world, and the path to realizing the cessation of the world, they are all created within us. So in the Buddha's philosophy, he doesn't actually talk about this external world. In his philosophy, Buddha is talking about a world that is created within us. And in fact, someone asks the Buddha, what is the world? How does the world originate? And Buddha says, Chasu loko samupanno. The world is created with these 6 senses. Right? So when we take something in, a world is created. So if we take something in from our eyes, a world of images is created. A world of you, where you are experiencing images, is created. And when that is destroyed or ceased, and you hear a sound, for example, a world with you is created. Experiencing a sound world is created. And when that is destroyed, you also die. That world is also destroyed. And so the birth and death that Buddha talks about in his philosophy is this instantaneous birth and death. It's not something that you were born 20-something years ago and you die in the future sometime. It's something that happens every moment, each instant. Right? In Sinhalese we say, Shanika upata and Shanika marane. This is what Buddha is talking about in his philosophy. So can you see how deep Buddha goes into this in his teachings, right? And Buddha didn't have to teach us this, right? He was enlightened. We use this term katankaraniyang. When we talk about enlightened people, we use this term katankaraniyang. Katankaraniyang means they have completed what they came here to do. Or in other words, they have nothing left to do in their life, right? So in our life, we have a bucket list, right? We want to see the Niagara Falls. We want to go around the world. We want to be a millionaire. We want to go in a Ferrari, right? All these things. And let's say you complete this list. Is your mind fulfilled now? Or is your mind going to ask for more? It's going to ask for more, right? So that means even if your bucket list is complete, you still have something left to do. Your mind's not content. Your mind's not fulfilled. Right? So at the moment of death, right? I'm talking the normal death. At the moment of death, if you have not completed what you have, or if your mind is still asking for more, then you have to come back and finish it. So you become born again. Right? If we take it back to this moment as well, if we don't see that each moment the world is destroyed, each moment you are created, each moment you are destroyed, each moment a world is created and each moment a world is destroyed, this thing continues. We feel like it's continuous because we don't see the cessation of that world, right? And so when we talk about a person who has mastered mindfulness, who has mastered their mind, who has fully understood their mind or gotten rid of all their attachments, such a person, we say katankaraniyan. Their mind is not asking them to do this and this and this. They have completed everything. They don't have anything else left to do. Right? So Buddha was such a person. He was enlightened. He doesn't have anything else left to do in his life. But he went on to teach us this. And he did this out of compassion. Purely out of compassion. Right? He didn't have to do this. He was a royal prince. But that's a compassion that Buddha has, right? So in this sutta as well, Buddha tells us to practice mindfulness and to be more specific, Buddha tells us to practice mindfulness on the body, kaya gata sati. It means mindfulness on the body. And how do we do that? When let's say you're eating something, when your tongue and the taste meet, a world is created. You are created, and when it goes down, that you and that world is destroyed. When you see something, let's say you're watching a movie even, a scene comes in, a world is created, and when that scene is gone, that is destroyed, that world is destroyed. When you hear a sound, the sound comes, a world is created, world of sound is created, and then it is destroyed. Right? So in Sinhalese we say, we have a saying in Sinhalese, Peranotibima wasn't there before. Hetun nisa hatagena. So because of the causes, So for example, the color and the eye, or the taste and the tongue, or the Sangyojaniya dhamma, or these causes. A world is created. Hetu nisa hatagena. Hetu niruddha veemeng, when the causes are gone, when the Ferrari is gone, niruddha vena. It is destroyed. It is ceased. Right? So it wasn't there before. It's not like I said, it's not like you existed and that existing person saw a Ferrari that came and went. It's not that. You were created along with that Ferrari. The moment the world of Ferrari is created is the moment that you yourself is created. So in other words, this idea of you is also just another construction of the mind that gets created along with these senses. Right? So because of this Sangyojaniya dhamma, Sangyojana happens. Sangyojana is this world. So in the sutta, Buddha says, now imagine if these 6 animals can be tied to a strong pole. Right? So there's a pole that's very strong, can't be shaken, and you tie these animals together. Right? Now it doesn't matter how powerful the animal is. It can't break and go to its home. Right? So it will try to go home, but at the end they're going to be tired and they're just going to fall asleep. Right? So this pole is mindfulness. And that's what it symbolizes. The pole symbolizes mindfulness. So when you practice mindfulness, when your mindfulness becomes sharp enough, your senses becomes samvara, becomes under control. So before, the most powerful one, when you see something, for example, your mind goes to that. Your mind goes to the eye. When you hear a sound, your mind goes to the sound. When you taste something, your mind goes to the taste. When a thought comes, your mind goes to the mind. It's going everywhere. It's running everywhere. It's asangvara. Now with mindfulness, Buddha says, like those animals fall asleep near the pole, they become sangvara. They don't start chasing. So slowly, bit by bit, you become someone who has done what you came here to do. Slowly you become katankaraniya. Slowly, right? And that comes with mastering these senses. That is sort of what happens as you practice. It doesn't mean you don't see anything, right? You still see things, you can still taste, you can still hear things. It's just that you don't take them in anymore. Right? So that's what Buddha emphasizes in this sutta, Chappanaka Sutta. He emphasizes the importance of practicing mindfulness so that your mind is samvara, regardless of where you live. Your mind isn't just, your senses are just not running around all the time. It's under control. Right? So that's the sutta that I wanted to talk about today. And if any of you guys have any questions, or if Bhante wants to add anything, we can discuss further.